Hey everyone, and welcome to the Context Minute. We're diving into something huge today, a massive new trade deal between the EU and India that's being called a total game changer. So yeah, let's just jump right in. So, you've got the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, calling this the mother of all deals. And she's not exaggerating. After so many years of back and forth, the EU and India have finally sealed the deal on this landmark free trade agreement. This is a really big deal, connecting two of the absolute largest economies on the planet. All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll talk about the long road it took to even get here. Then, we're going to unpack what this agreement actually does. After that, we'll look at the big wins, from the government's perspective. And then switch gears to the very real fears coming from people on the ground. And finally, we'll ask, what happens now? Okay, first things first. This agreement did not just pop up out of nowhere. Seriously, this has been a long and winding road, a journey that's been almost 2 decades in the making. So get this, negotiations kicked off way back in 2007, but just a few years later, by 2013, they hit a complete wall. The talks just stalled out over some major sticking points, like taxes on cars and access for farm goods. For almost 10 years, nothing. The deal was basically frozen. And then suddenly, with the world changing, things picked up speed again, and boom, we have an agreement in 2026. It really just goes to show you how incredibly complicated these huge international deals can be. All right, that brings us right to the heart of it. Let's unpack this agreement. What does it actually do? What does a free trade agreement between these two giants even mean in simple, everyday terms? Okay, so at its core, a free trade agreement, or FTA, is all about making it easier and cheaper for countries to trade with each other. It's pretty simple, really. Imagine you're buying something from another country. Normally, when it crosses the border, a tax gets slapped on it, right? That's called a tariff. Well, an FTA's job is to cut those taxes way down or even get rid of them completely, and that makes the stuff you're importing a whole lot cheaper. So this deal is a classic give and take. On one side, the EU gets to sell more of its cars, its wine, and a whole bunch of other manufactured goods and services in India. And what does India get in return? Well, they get an easier time exporting their textiles, gems, and a lot of pharmaceuticals to Europe. Plus, and this is a big one, the deal is supposed to make it easier for skilled professionals from India to come work in the EU. So both sides are dropping their taxes on these key things to make it all flow a lot smoother. Okay, let's switch gears and look at the official story. From the government buildings in Brussels and New Delhi, this deal is a huge win. I mean, a massive victory. And they've got some pretty impressive numbers they're pointing to as proof. Let's take a look. So the first big number they're talking about, jobs. We're talking about a projected 1.5 to 2 million new jobs. That's a staggering number. And these are expected to be in those hands-on, labor-intensive industries that are going to get a major boost from all this new trade. And then there's the money. The sheer economic scale here is just wow. For India alone, we're looking at an estimated gain of around $50 billion a year in exports. I mean, just think about that. That's a massive shot in the arm for their entire economy. So how do they get to numbers like that? Well, it's all about access. The deal basically throws the doors wide open. We're talking about the EU opening up almost 97% of its product categories to India, and India opening up 92% of its categories to the EU. What that really means is that almost everything being traded between them is going to have much lower taxes, or in some cases, no taxes at all. But that's the official story. When you look at what people on the ground are saying, well, you get a completely different picture. It's a story that's a lot less optimistic, and frankly, it's filled with a lot of concern and anxiety about what this deal could mean for their jobs and their future. So let's dive into some of these worries. I mean, take this comment here. It cuts right to the chase of one of the biggest fears, jobs being outsourced. There's a real worry that if it's easier for companies to do business across borders, a lot more European jobs, especially in the IT world, are just going to be shipped over to India. And this next point really builds on that. It's this deep-seated feeling that entire white-collar sectors, IT, back-office jobs, could just be hollowed out. The fear isn't just about losing a few jobs here or there. It's about a massive, fundamental shift that could push down wages and shrink opportunities for local workers in Europe. Now, for a lot of people, the issue isn't just about trading goods. It's about something else tucked inside this deal called the Mobility Pact. And what is that? Well, it's a part of the agreement designed to make it much easier for skilled professionals from India, think engineers, IT specialists, to get visas and work permits to come to the EU. And for many who are worried about this deal, this is the real red flag. And of course, this is where the politics come in. You can see it right here in this comment. The writer is basically connecting the dots, saying that all these economic fears, this anxiety about jobs and wages being threatened by what they call cheap imported labor, could have some pretty serious political consequences. The suggestion is that it could push more and more people to vote for far-right parties that run on anti-immigration platforms.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, we're basically looking at two completely different stories about the future, aren't we? On the one hand, you've got this vision of amazing economic growth, millions of new jobs, and stronger partnerships across the globe. But on the other hand, there's this darker story, one of local jobs disappearing, wages falling, and big disruptive social change.
So what happens next in the real world? Well, the next steps are already mapped out. The deal got its final sign-off in January 2026, but these things take time to get up and running. The plan is for everything to be fully implemented and in motion by early 2027.
So in the end, we're left with this huge central question, and there's just no easy answer. Is this mother of all deals really a masterstroke for global trade that's going to lift everybody up, or is it a very real threat to local jobs and wages back in Europe? I guess only time will tell. Thanks for joining us here at the Context Minute.